I played Deadly Premonition on my friend's Xbox 360 back when it was released in 2010, and it instantly became one of my absolute favorite games of all time. It was deeply flawed, however, and what I really wanted to see is an updated remaster of a game, preferably released on PC so it can be played years and years to come. When I first heard of the director's cut coming, I was excited beyond belief, and when it became clear that this version may also come to PC, I urged everyone to fight for that possibility, looking forward to replay this jam. Given that the director's cut was released on PCs 3 years ago and I'm making this revisit only now, you may guess that something went wrong. But before I start explaining this new PC version, let's have a quick look back at the original.
Previously during the investigation.
Deadly Premonition is a strange open-world action-adventure game that managed to mix in concepts from games like Shenmue, Resident Evil 4 and Clock Tower in one strange interactive Twin Peaks tribute. It's intentionally confusing tonal dissonance that normalizes as the events become more personal and twisted, memorable characters and incredible music can win over anyone who's willing to put up with the game's rather rough survival action bits and absolutely dreadful QTE sequences. The former are not as hard as bland and rather boring, becoming stupidly easy if the player knows what to do, or stupidly frustrating if the player doesn't. QTEs though are impossibly horrible and usually completely pointless, often requiring to wiggle the stick to run instead of, holding the direction and the run buttons at the same time to do the same. Those wiggle segments become insanely overused by the end of the game, including a huge extended sequence during a boss fight that requires your fingers to hurt for about 3 to 5 minutes straight. I'm not joking. Other than that, the game wasn't particularly pretty, but the main problems with the engine were more due to how buggy the simple things could be, and how many loadings the game required for you to sit through between seemingly simple transitions. So remastering the game should have been easy, at least removing or seriously changing the QTE segments, slightly rebalancing the action bits, fixing typos, glitches and other minor things, and making some parts clearer and more user-friendly. At best, porting the game to a different engine that would support data streaming better on top of these things. Sadly, director's cut went a different direction and the original 360 version, played here by a super great friend by the way, and you should definitely check his amazing let's play, especially if you can't play the original version yourself, may as well be the best version available today. But let's start with the good things, because there are a few. Game does look a tiny bit better. A strange purple filter has been removed, which makes game look slightly differently and sometimes just plain better. 3 separate difficulties were removed, instead switched to just one, which is something in between easy and normal of the original. And on top of that, some action sequences seem to have been slightly rebalanced to be less tedious. The quest item Legendary Guitar, for example, now definitely kills pretty much everything in just one hit, making it vital for having fun times. Tank controls have been changed for 3D analog control, so the game controls more like a modern action-adventure rather than survival horror or survival action now. And even me, a huge fan of tank controls, can agree that for Deadly Premonition, it's an improvement that makes it easier to maneuver. Also, PC version sports more or less normal keyboard and mouse controls, which do make the game less frustrating to play in some cases. Then we have some things that are just there. Visuals without the filters sometimes look weird, especially if you're not using any fan-made visual mods, and some stuff seems to actually look outright worse than the original game. There are also DLC editions that are just pointless. There's a house that you own, although it's just a thing that you don't even enter but rather teleport into, and the developers didn't even bother to program a new save point inside. There are skins for York and his car that add completely pointless bonuses, and absolutely ridiculously stupid skins for Emily and Raidcoat Killer, which is just, why are they even here? You don't have to use any of this stuff apart from the house, which seems to just be turned on anyway though, but still, why? And there are so many bad things. For starters, the director's cut itself doesn't fix any of the real issues of the game, and instead adds pointless, horrible pre-rendered scenes between chapters that ruin the flow of the story without adding anything meaningful, and sometimes actually spoil the story way early. The QTEs are just as horrible as before, despite the fact that they seem to have been made slightly easier. I don't know, my fingers hurt the same though. All the original typos, mistranslations, glitches are still in the game, no rebalance was made to some very tricky to trigger side quests, and some things are just as obtuse and as bad as in the original. The game actually runs worse than the original too. Even the console versions are known to have frame rate issues and crashes, but PC version is just plain horrible. It runs in 720p resolution without the Durantis fix, but unlike Dark Souls 1, this game also crashes and burns all the time. It can crash whenever you load it, or maybe it won't. It usually crashes after a certain amount of time has passed and you looked at the game map and saw a certain amount of loading screens. Game supports gamepads in a horrible way, because even the Xbox One controller isn't working correctly. It's just not fun to play this ticking time bomb that can crash at any point, whatever you do. And sadly, it's the only version of the game that we will have for days to come. Deadly Premonition is a fantastic, if very flawed game, one of my favorites. Director's Cut though, especially the PC version, is a horrible mess that should be avoided at all costs. It's actually preferable to watch the Let's Play of the game like the one from Super Great Friend I mentioned before, and Deadly Premonition deserves a proper remaster, something that will truly make it an amazing, unforgettable experience for many years to come. Wouldn't you agree, Zach?
There's no theme park in this town, though. All that good luck is just slipping away. But I think I'll have a thrilling enough time right here anyway.